This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Today is Tuesday, which means we're doing a top 5 list, and the topic of the list today might be a bit of a mystery to the younger viewers out there. Let's say anybody below the age of, 40 or thereabouts, because this is albums that I took a chance on. Remember when you used to do that? Remember when you would save up your hard-earned allowance or pocket money or Saturday job money or paper round money and go into town on a Saturday morning and buy an album that you'd not heard a note of music from, but you'd read about it. You'd heard maybe people talking about it. Maybe it was an album that everybody else was waxing lyrical about, but you hadn't heard, and you felt like you were, kind of missing out on something, so you'd go and take a chance. I mean, no one does that these days. I mean, I don't, I'm Spotify all the way, and I love the way that it will make suggestions to me based upon what music I'm listening to, and I'll discover new artists or maybe rediscover albums and artists that I'd forgotten about from my past. But these days, we just don't take a chance on music like that. And every now and again, I get the old rose-tinted spectacles out and get nostalgic for the days when, as I say, Saturday morning, go into town on the bus and buy an album you'd never heard a note of music from. Sometimes it was a bit of a disappointment, more often than not probably, but you don't remember those ones. You just remember the ones that made a big impact on you. And, kind of the ones where the gamble paid off. And here's 5 that did exactly that for me, starting with
Surfing with the Alien.
Yes, indeed. Joe Satriani's second album, Surfing with the Alien, Not of This Earth, was one that I'd read about in guitar magazines, and, and everyone was saying, this weird instrumental guitarist guy, this virtuoso who produces this kind of incredible but different music. And then, I don't know if you remember Guitar Player magazine, they used to have this this tear-out page that was made of plastic, which was actually a vinyl record, a flexible disc, a flexi disc, I think they're called, that you could play. And there was one month, I think at some point in late 87, there was a tune of his on there called The Crush of Love. And I thought, this is fantastic. Basically, in my mind back then, you had, this is like sort of mid to late 80s, you had bluesy guitarists, you had melodic guitarists, and you had shredding guitarists. And perhaps there was a little bit of crossover. I mean, Gary Moore was kind of melodic, bluesy shred, but there weren't many guys like that. And certainly most of the shredder guitarists that I'd ever heard didn't seem that melodic to me. So when I heard The Crush of Love, I thought, I gotta hear more from this guy. So I went down and, went to the local record emporium. And, of course, there was nothing by Joe Satriani in there. So I had to order it. And then you've got the additional wait. You're waiting for the phone call from the record shop telling you that album you ordered, that special order, that it's arrived, come and get it. And, when I got this home, boy, was I amazed. I'd never heard anything like it before. I think it's probably true to say that this was possibly the first instrumental guitar album I'd listened to or bought since listening to stuff by Hank Marvin and the Shadows. Bit different, it has to be said. I'm not going to talk about why this album is fantastic. Go and listen to it. I'll link to all of these albums in the description so you can go and listen to it. But, in 1987, I'd never heard anything like this before. And this is definitely one that made a big impression on me, and I'm glad I took the chance on it. Next.
Art via Musicom.
Indeed, Eric Johnson, Art via Musicom. Again, an album that I was reading about. I think that there was an interview with Eric Johnson. I think it was in Guitarist magazine, not Guitar Player. But I've been hearing this name, Eric Johnson, touted for quite some time. I seem to remember not long after Fender started making the American Standard Strat at some point in the mid to late 80s. This guitarist that everybody was talking about was appearing in the adverts for the American Standard Strat. And talking about what a fantastic guitar it was, and everybody said, "Oh, Eric Johnson likes these guitars, these new Fenders. Maybe they're pretty good." So I knew he was a guitarist that was held in high regard, and just the interview with him in Guitarist magazine. I think it was, if my memory serves me correctly, I think it was Nick Bowcott who interviewed him, and he was one of the guys whose opinion generally I trusted in such publications. And yeah, it was there was talk about, okay, so you did a country tune here, and you did this kind of Hendrix inspired tune here, and the virtuosity on Cliffs of Dover, and and all of this sort of stuff. It's whetting my appetite, and I couldn't wait to go out and get it. And as luck would have it, I think I was in my local branch of, HMV, big record store chain in the UK, and there was this album. I recognised the cover from having seen things in guitar magazines, and I thought, right, it's like I didn't want to let anybody else touch it. I didn't want anyone else to kind of take it, because it was the only copy. So I'm elbowing people out the way to grab my purchase, and then you've got that fantastic. That bus ride back home where you're reading the sleeve notes and everything. And this was round about the time, I think, that I'd gone from vinyl to CDs. So I definitely remember this was a CD that I bought. And again, just listening to it, what a fantastic album. Again, we're not here to discuss, each and every track on the album. Just go and listen to it, and you'll hear what I mean. If you haven't already made yourself familiar with this album, I'm sure most of you know it already. But yeah, it's another album that I'm glad I took a chance on. Next.
Down to Earth.
Yes. Now, you see, when I started playing guitar when I was 11 years old, and hanging around in the music room at school with all of the other older kids who were playing the guitar, some old men of like 14 and 15, those were the days, and they're all talking about, heavy rock and heavy metal, as it was called then. I mean, you wouldn't really describe Rainbow as heavy metal these days, but it was, part of what was described as that genre back then. And heavy rock, fantastic guitar players in heavy rock, and Hendrix was a name that kept cropping up. And all the time when I saw heavy rock on, or any kind of heavy metal or metal music or rock music on TV, it was always just this cacophonous noise that, I'm not interested in that. But then in the late 70s, rock bands started releasing catchy singles. Judas Priest with like Living After Midnight, and Rainbow with Since You've Been Gone. And I can't remember which of those that I heard first, but definitely Since You've Been Gone was the track that made me go out and buy an album. Certainly one of the first albums. The only music I'd heard of it was the single. Since You've Been Gone, I'd seen it on Top of the Pops, that video, for it, with a little bit of acting by Graham Bonnet in the video, and I thought, yeah, this is good. And so consequently, Saturday morning, I'm down there, I'm on the bus, and I'm buying this album. And again, it sort of introduced me to rock music, really, or it was one of the albums that did it. I certainly remember this being one of the first albums of that genre that I invested my precious pocket money in, and it's got a lot to answer for. It turned me, possibly the album that turned me on to rock music, and again, it was very much a chance taken on that album, and glad I did. Next.
Live at the Fillmore.
Yeah, now, again, going back to the days when I was an adolescent, there was on the local radio station in this part of the world, it was called Radio Tees at the time. I think it's changed its name to TFM now. But on a Sunday evening, I think it was a Sunday evening, there used to be like kind of a guitar-based, well, it wasn't really guitar-based, but it was kind of, it wasn't top 40 based, and there was a lot of guitar music on this show that was on for about 90 minutes or so. And I regularly used to just be poised with my fingers over the play and record buttons on the cassette player. And then they started playing this piece of music. I thought, I know that. That's that theme from that TV show about cars. It was Jessica by the Allman Brothers Band. And I didn't know who it was by. I just knew that I recognised it. So, oh, yeah, okay, let's take a chance. A little bit of a chance, press play and record. You can always record over it later if you don't like it. And I heard, of course, like the full-length version of this song, or this tune, rather. And then they announced it at the end. I hate it when DJs don't do that, by the way, when they kind of play about 4 songs back to back, and you think, well, who's that one at the beginning? But they announced it at the end. That was the Allman Brothers Band. And okay, right, well, that's a name to remember. And of course, in conversations with like the people who knew more than me about such matters, I mentioned, have you ever heard of the Allman Brothers Band? Oh yes, of course. You have to listen to their live album, live at the Fillmore. So again, many different people recommending this live album. I don't know what I was expecting. I think I was expecting, kind of live versions of tunes like Jessica and more of that kind of vein. I certainly wasn't prepared for the blues onslaught that is this album. Boy, it was different, but I didn't know much about the Allman Brothers, but I knew I liked this kind of music. And possibly a track like In Memory of Elizabeth Reed was that sort of got me into the more kind of modal jazz sort of stuff. Maybe a stepping stone, a gateway drug towards that. But yeah, fantastic. I knew nothing about this album. I bought it purely on the basis of recommendations, because I'd heard, what turned out to be a later incarnation of the band, with Jessica. But yeah, fantastic album. Took a chance on it, and very glad I did. Next.
Born in the USA.
Indeed, Born in the USA. Now, this was... I knew the name Bruce Springsteen. And I knew that people kind of talked about him as, somebody that was an important figure. Somebody that if you were into kind of like American rock, country, maybe not country, I don't think that was used as a description for him, but American kind of singer-songwriter rock that had lots of guitar focus on it, then this was somebody that you should be into. And there was a lot of buzz about this new album that he was coming out with, because he was a bit of a slouch for releasing albums at the time. He would go years between albums, and there was a lot of anticipation, reading stuff in the music press about it, and watching TV shows about, kind of like Whistle Test and stuff like that. Oh, there's a new Springsteen album on its way. Everybody get ready. This is going to be important, So I'm curious. As you do. I did know one thing about Springsteen, though, and that was that he wrote one of my favourite songs by this chap, Dave Edmunds. The first track on this album, D.E. 7th, is a Bruce Springsteen song. It's called From Small Things, Big Things Come. I'm not sure if Bruce has ever recorded it, but it's a fantastic song. Go and check it out. But yeah, so I knew Springsteen, I knew that was an example of his songwriting, and I knew that if I was interested in music, I should probably discover more about this bloke called Springsteen. So again, the Saturday job money was saved up, and down to, I think it was W.H. Smith in Middlesbrough Town Centre, where I went and bought this, and then I'm looking at the sleeve notes on the way home, and there's a song on there called Darlington County. Well, Darlington is a town very near to where I live, and I'm thinking, is that about here? Of course it isn't, But, apart from anything else, this is one of the albums that made me think, I really, really like the sound of that guitar. What kind of guitar is that I'm hearing on there? Which, of course, is a Telecaster. And possibly that sowed the seeds for my ongoing love of Leo Fender's finest guitar, in my opinion. I know some people will differ with me on that. But yeah, it's an album that I hadn't heard a single note of music from. I bought it before even the big single Dancing in the Dark came out. Or certainly before I'd heard that single. And loved it from the beginning. The beginning, the first thing you hear on that album is the keyboard intro on the title track. I'm thinking, okay, This sounds, I seem to remember thinking, this sounds a little bit sort of Depeche Mode. I'm not quite sure about this. But then you're into Cover Me and Darlington County and stuff, and it all worked out famously in the end. I know Springsteen is a bit of a Marmite artist, he divides opinion, but you know, and I wouldn't say I'm a massive fan of his entire career, but this album, you know, it still has a special place in my heart, and it's an album I bought without hearing a single note of music. I took a chance on it. So there you go, folks. There are the stories, or my recollections and reminiscences of 5 albums that I took a chance on. Let me know what yours are down in the comments below. As I say, anybody under the age of about 40 probably will not have a clue about this this sort of sense of gambling on going out and buying music like this. But those of us of a certain age, we all know what this is about. And that's the video for today, folks. Hope you found it reasonably entertaining. And if that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so, and why not give me a like while you're at it. Don't forget the live stream on Friday 5 p.m. UK time, where we drink beer and talk about all manner of stuff, usually guitar and music related, but it could be anything. It's a fantastic way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.